But so building and retaining your performing team is the topic that we have here today. But just before we run into that, we would like to know who's in the room. So we've got a few polls set up, in fact. I'm going to launch one now, which is asking you just two questions there, or three questions, in fact, about you and your team. So how many people are there? How many founders are involved in your startup first? So the poll pops up. You can just participate in voting in the poll, so we can see who's in the room, where you are at. Me and one founder is starting to score a few points there. And then the second question, how many people are in your team right now? So it's you, your founders, and whoever else. And then in 2 years' time, the third question, how many people do you anticipate to have in your team? That just gives us an idea of where you're at in terms of your own business. Perhaps I think there may be one or two people in the room that are supporting founders. So you may do it on behalf of those people that you support and that you would like to know more about. So we're not going to take too long with this poll so that we can get the result, and I can show it to you guys. So just 1 more second, 2 more seconds if you need to vote, and then I'm going to end the poll right now. Okay, so I should be able to share the result with all of you guys. There you are. So about half of us are you and one other founder. That's quite interesting. Some people say that the successful startup it's more likely to be successful if you are more than one founder, perhaps two. Then only one person in the room, 13%, is just the one person. That's very interesting. And then quite a bit. I'm quite surprised that a quarter are the 3 people, 3 founders, and then there's even some that are more. So, but by far the majority, you and one person. So that's an interesting dynamic, of course, in terms of team building too, is how the founders get along and build the business together. And then how many people are in total? We are sitting 3 to 5 as by far the majority, about 2/3 of people in the room. And there's kind of one that's just one person, one that's got more than 25. And then growth into the future is quite an even spread. So Frans, this will be interesting to talk about too, is in terms of the growth of the team and anticipation, how you prepare yourself to grow into having more employees. So most of us are shifting into the 11 to 50 category of employees. So that's kind of interesting to note too. Okay, so that gives us a bit of a context in terms of who's in the room. Okay, I've spoken too much for now. So Frans, if I can hand over to you, we do have the slides that we can share, and we can just kind of go straight into what you want to share with us today. And I'm really looking forward to, I've seen your slides, so I know there's a lot of really potent stuff for us to take on board. I'm happy that we're making a recording of this because I think it can become a resource for people in the future too. There's really some interesting things for you to note in building your team. So Frans, if I may hand over to you. Okay, we must just make sure that we've got you unmuted. Let's just see there. I'll do that for you. Don't have to worry. If it would go. Maybe you should try. I've tried to unmute you. I couldn't. It's the button on the left. Yeah, there you are.
You understand? Yeah. You hear me?
Now we hear. Yeah. Now we hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. So this discussion is about entrepreneurship and leadership. So I found a very nice definition of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the relentless pursuit of opportunity beyond resources currently controlled. So there is the aspect of ambition, of to get things you don't get yet, or to control better things you have. And today we focus on the HR resources because there are a lot of resources in the company. There are financial resources, there are production resources. We focus now on HR resources, building and retaining a team, and in an early phase. So we are right here because you saw most of the participants are in an early phase, 1 or 2 founders and some employees around. So it's in this position. This is the focus of our discussion here. Yes. So I think it all starts with an entrepreneur. Eh? This the start of an initiative of a new business or a potential unicorn is an entrepreneur and a leader, because the aspect of leadership is very important. If a company grows, you see there an early phase, expanding phase, mature phase. So at the start, an entrepreneur can be an inventor, can be a stubborn guy or lady, but when you grow, you have to take into account that you have to manage other people. So if you want to play your role in the future in the growing company, you must be a leader also. And we have also something special about leadership here, about the notion transformational leadership, which provides favorable conditions for other entrepreneurs to join. So, and a transformational leader refers to a leader who inspires his followers to take over the vision of the organization and to focus their energy on achieving collective goals. So you must be able to unite the team. And this is the concept of transformational leadership. We will see some aspects of this in the next slide. Yes, so there are four aspects we have to take into account. Aspect of strategy, aspect of communication, aspect of people, very important, and aspect of operation. So you can see some definitions of this, and on the right side, some keywords which relate to these definitions. So this is very important, that if you have a growing company as a starter, you can continue having the steering wheel by working with people in a successful way. And this is what it is all about, so about leadership in a growing company. Yeah? So about the team, you have to share the vision, the goals, the metrics, and to get people excited about the goal of your company. Yeah? So, and what is necessary for these people? There are a lot of motivators and competencies which are very critical for entrepreneurs. We have done research for the HWeb last year by interviewing 120 successful entrepreneurs and asking them about the factors which were important for their success. And then we found a small list of motivators and a small list of competencies which were always coming back. So, and you can see in the next slide, we have 4 motivators.
So Frans, before we go on to the motivators, in fact, I think we went maybe one slide too far. You know, sort of, so, in terms of those key elements in transformational leadership. Let's ask Riaan to reflect a bit on that. So Riaan, if you look at that, would you call yourself a transformational leader? You know, someone that attends to strategy, communication, people, and operations.
I'd like to think so, yes. I'm looking at those 4 orange keywords, and I think I can humbly say, and maybe Dom can also mention that in the comments. But yeah, I think that is something that we've realized from the beginning, is that we have to be crystal clear in terms of what it is that we want to achieve, you know, and how we're going to get there. And on a regular basis, I mean, literally check in, you know, how yesterday went, what's today, and, you know, what are the stumbling blocks. So we communicate on a very regular basis. We have team meetings like where the whole company gets together once a week. Yeah, so it's super important that everybody knows where we're going, why we're going there, you know, how we're going to get there, and then the individual contribution. So yeah, at the end of the day, you know, you can know which mountain you want to ascend, but you've got to put one foot ahead of the other, and taking little by little steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, if one of those 4 elements weren't there, then I don't know how we would have come this far.
Yeah, it's kind of, you have to have all 4, but you're not necessarily always equally strong in all 4.
And some of them you only find out because you make
So Riaan, I think your internet is
Created
going.
mistakes.
Going so
But yes,
Riaan, your
absolutely.
internet is going a bit.
Looking at that.
Your internet is going a bit slow. It looks like, because we're losing your voice every now and then. But let's see how it goes. So maybe we can ask Don to kick everyone else off the internet at the office for a while. But you can't, because your business is so dependent on that. But there's a bit of a bandwidth kind of wobble there. But we got most of what you were saying. So let's just ask everyone in the room that question, sort of in terms of yourself. And if you look at those transformational leadership characteristics that we are looking for in a startup. So, and I think, sort of being co-founder with other people allows us not to have to cover all those bases ourselves as individuals. And I think that's something that Frans is going to come to just now, by the way, too. So let's look at what we're asking there in this poll now. So the same thing, you can participate by just voting there, which is applicable to you. So which of these elements are you the strongest in? So in fact, we're asking you to select one only, which is kind of interesting, because if you have to cover all four, we now just are asking you which one of those are you the strongest, you reckon you are the strongest in. And it's interesting that mostly we can identify one or two that we are performing easier and better in. We get into our flow when we have to attend to those things, and other things tend to be a bit more difficult for us to attend to. And then question two, which of the elements of transformational leadership do you find most challenging? So which of those four is really the most difficult for you as an individual to attend to? So we're asking the questions about yourself as a leader, as an individual, not your team. And it's interesting there that it looks like developing vision and strategy, sort of we as entrepreneurs are out there creating new ways of doing, and we are keen to see change happening, and in our business, we drive that vision too. So it looks like we are the strongest there. I'm going to close the poll just now. So if you want to vote still, please do so. We've got a few people that have participated. Maybe everyone in the room hasn't. So that's why I'm just keeping it open for a moment more. So if you want to vote there, which of those elements do you find yourself to be the strongest in, and which do you find to be the most challenging? Okay, and then I'm going to end the poll, and then I can share the result with you guys too. Developing the vision, the strategy, that's clearly what most of us are the strongest in. And gaining support, dealing with people, that's interesting that we find that quite a challenging one in terms of the people in the room here. And then a bit in sharing the goals, the communication, and in the operations, we seem to be okay. But yeah, that's interesting that about half the people that voted indicated that gaining support from other people is a challenge for them. So we're good at creating the vision, but maybe struggling to communicate that with others. So let's hear from anyone in the room too. So if you have a question around this transformational leadership and the elements in that, please post that in the Q&A, or if you just want to put a note. I see Dominique and Victoria and Alexandria has been chatting there in the chat. You can chat alongside while we go along in the masterclass too. Share some insights and ideas that you've had around that. So remember to put the questions that you want us to discuss in the Q&A as such. But Alex, if I can come to you quickly, so having spoken about transformation, or maybe before we go there, Riaan, if I can revert back to you. So before we get to Alex, the fact that you are two founders, you find that makes it easier for you to deal with those four elements of transformational leadership?
I almost said yes and no. I think there's a massive safety net in having a co-founder. Both Dom and I would agree. We have different strengths. We kind of on the opposite spectrum, of our strengths, but they complement one another. So formulating the strategy and communicating them, it might be more complicated because you're soundboarding and you're finding what's going to work best and how to deliver that best. Whereas if you were the only person in the room, you could easily just go for it, but also easily make mistakes. So it doesn't make it easier, but doesn't make it more powerful and impactful to have a co-founder. Absolutely, someone that carries the heart of it, that kind of gave birth, to this baby with you. Without a doubt, I think it's definitely much better. More counselors and wisdom than just your own. Definitely works wonders.
Yeah. So by the way, if anyone in the room, any of the attendees wish to share their story around any of these things we discussed, you can put up your hand and we can actually bring you into the discussion so we can hear your voice, or if you're prepared for that, you can even show your face. And you can just do that by raising your hand. You'll see there's a button to raise your hand, and we'll see that you would like to speak. So if there's anyone that, in terms of these characteristics, have had interesting experiences, or that have found that actually works or doesn't work for them in terms of being co-founders, you can raise your hand, and then we can bring you into the discussion too. But Alex, if we can ask you to just switch on your camera too, and you'll unmute yourself, then we can ask you what your impressions are. So you're in fact in charge at the Tony Lemire Foundation, working with alumni. So a lot of these people have come through your programs and are now running their startups. So how would you say that resonates with them, this distinction between the 4 elements of transformational leadership?
Okay, thank you so much, Christoph. So as you mentioned, I work with a large network of entrepreneurs, and many of them are just starting off their businesses. Here at the Tony Lemire Foundation, we accept entrepreneurs into our program that are just coming with just an idea, so might just be themselves and their co-founder. And a lot of them have come to us and said that they want to expand their team, and they struggle with getting support from people to join on, because maybe they don't have the resources to pay the talent that they were looking to attract. So from my experience, I think getting the support has been something that I receive a lot of feedback from our entrepreneurs. Through the program and the training that we provide at the foundation, we definitely help them to fine-tune their vision and their strategy. And then we help them to, with their marketing of their ideas, to try to communicate their vision to a wider audience and try to attract investors, and also try to attract the right talent to their team. So in my experience, I think that the foundation has prepared them, but I feel like they also still just really struggle with gaining support and getting people to come onto their team.
Yeah, no, great. So, I mean, I think there's a question that we can come to a bit later in terms of knowing what kind of talent it is that you need, but not being able to afford that yet. So I heard you say that quite loudly. So Frans, maybe that is something that we can stop at as we go along too. And I see Emmanuel has got a question about co-founders and the need for perhaps being not only limited to one country, but have a co-founder from another country. So Frans, as we go along, in fact, we can go to the motivators and the capabilities just now, but let's just deal with Emmanuel's question quickly. So would it be an advantage as a startup to have founders from different countries?
It's a question to me, Christoph.
Yes, well, anyone in the room can try to answer that. In fact, any of the attendees may put up their hands too if they have anything, or put it in the chat. So if anyone's got ideas around the advantages and disadvantages of having founders in different countries. But yeah, I'm addressing it to you, Frans, if you have ideas around that.
Well, yeah, I think it all depends on the business the starter is in. It's not always realistic to look at the very start for international co-founders. They often come in a later phase when it is a question of injecting money into the business.
Yeah.
So people, angel investors who have also interest in actively participating in the business. But at the very start, it's I don't know. Should be the ambition to look to international co-founder. People find this in their environment, in their ecosystem, in their incubator. So they start where they can. They have no means to look for international partners, I think.
Yeah, and maybe there may be some other more important criteria, like trust and ability to work together and complement each other. More important than where you are based, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. I think people will start with very little resources, most of them. It's far away to look internationally. They just have to have some start, some traction, and then everything starts to move. But at the start, it's a difficult period.
Yeah.
So there are no money, no resources. It's always big ambition and a vision. Start
Yeah.
with this one.
Yeah, so I see Pilwa says in the chat, the text chat, that he's of the view that Born Global, the Born Global perspective is the one that's driving startups. So you need to be prepared to work across boundaries, but perhaps there's the other considerations when we actually get going. Okay, so Emmanuel is from Cameroon. He says, and due to the slow development there, he was looking at Ghana, and so driven by the market. So I think that is what Frans was alluding to. If there's strong reasons for you to look at associating yourselves with others that are from other territories because of the market that is driving you to do that, then that may be a good step to take. But in any case, so let's move on from, if we may, or are there any other comments from anyone in the room, Alex or Riaan? Can we move on? Can Frans take us into the next? Yeah, so let's move on to talking about performance. So Frans, if I can hand back to you, you were starting to talk about motivators.
Yes. Well, last year we are asking ourselves, what is special for an entrepreneur? So, and we got the idea to ask it to the entrepreneurs, to successful entrepreneurs, because there are many entrepreneurs which are not successful. We targeted the successful entrepreneurs, and we mobilized 10 graduates and asked them to ask this in 120 in-depth interviews with African and Belgian entrepreneurs. So a lot of interviews they did themselves, other interviews they read in the press in South Africa and in Belgium. And they just looked at the competences they mentioned, which played a role in their success. And then you see on the next slide that we had divided this in motivators. Why did it? Did they become entrepreneurs? And there were 4 big motivators. There was ambition, passion, need for independence, for autonomy, being your own boss, and need for recognition, profiling, being a person which is noticed, which is seen, which has a certain standing. This was what we found in this exercise. There's only 4 we find. This is the most frequently mentioned by 120 successful entrepreneurs. This is the question: why? Why do I become an entrepreneur? You have to have a certain ambition. If you don't have it, forget it. So this is an aspect which is very difficult to develop. You can't develop ambition. You can't say, well, become ambitious. You are not ambitious, but become ambitious. Very difficult to develop. And the next series is the competencies. And this is the why, the how question. What are the capacities you need to be a successful entrepreneur? And this is the list we got. So, proactivity, innovation, risk, willing to take a risk, team building, going along with other people, stress resistance, resilience, and self-confidence, perseverance, and dealing with change, flexibility. This was the short list we got from all these interviews. And we benchmark this also with some other sources. Christophe, I don't know if you get at the end of the very end of the very last slide, the 2 last slides, yeah, at the very end, yeah. So we compare this with the 21st century of the USO, so it's an international organization, and we find some similarities. The green ones are competences which come also in our list. And the other benchmark was with the European Community definition of entrepreneurship. Is the slide before or afterwards? So you see the green signs. These are the competences in the model of the European Commission, which we find also So there's a lot of similarity. So what we find has a certain value, I think. It's something you can work on, you can trust in a certain way. And now we look at these motivators and competencies. If we look for engaging entrepreneurs, it's very important that they have they score good on these criteria. Christoph, maybe we can go back to the list of motivators and competencies. So I don't know if you recognize yourself being entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs becoming entrepreneur. If you recognize yourself, you think you can do something with this this list as a working list. Eh?
Yeah. So let's ask. I launched the poll there again, so we're getting used to how we do this now. So if everyone in the room can click there in the poll what applies to them. So let's first look at the motivators. So this is really interesting. Also, the validation fronts of how many was it that you tested?
We didn't test. We interviewed 100. We interviewed and analyzed interviews of 120 successful entrepreneurs in Belgium and South Africa.
Okay.
So in South Africa was half black, half white. In Belgium was mostly white. Eh?
European, yeah. Okay, so and no very big variation. So it's kind of it's global. You can apply that to anyone. But what motivated you would be the question. So you're a founder. You started your startup. What motivates you most in having started?
Well, at the time I started, I had no choice. Eh? I think if you start a company, it's a need. You have no other choice. You must do it. Other ways are blocked. So at a certain moment you jump and then you start to work with your competencies. Your first is the motivation to start, and then you need some tools, and these are your competencies. And if you don't have them, you should hire them in a later stage. So I should always say to entrepreneur, if you have a weak point, don't work on it. You have no time to do it. Engage somebody, a complementary, who is strong in this field. And so you get a complete team, and it lasts 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 5 years. But if you have some persistence and you don't run totally out of money, then you continue, and sooner or later you succeed. You don't get a Mark Zuckerman, everybody, but you can even on a lower level, regionally or nationally, be very successful. Eh? There are a lot of companies under the radar which are very efficient, successful. At a certain moment, you have some traction, and then you go. Eh?
Yeah, so what I hear you say, Frans, is don't struggle too long with the things that you are challenged by. Move on, get someone else to do as soon as possible.
Yes. Look for parts which are strong in the points where you are weaker. Yeah. You have no time to learn all your languages and learn all your mathematics and everything. So you have always strong points.
So the interesting thing that you say, Frans, is that when you started, you had to. Now you don't have hunger here as one of the options. But that may be so that successful entrepreneurs that start startups aren't people that are responding because they just have to do a bit of business. There's people that see opportunity. So maybe that's But people have been voting. So thank you very much for everyone that's been voting. You can keep voting still. I'm going to keep the poll open for a moment more. So we're asking there 2 questions first on motivators. Why did you start? What is the strongest in you and your team? So it's not only about you, but also your team. And it looks like ambition. I'm just keeping it open for a moment more. I'll give you the results now. Ambition is the highest. So if you're looking for that, just open the poll window, and you can participate in the poll and vote as an attendee. And followed by passion, eagerness, and so on. Independence is not really scoring well, and no one had said the need for recognition. So we're not doing it to get the recognition or to get the profiling. And then which motivators are the weakest on, and then the need for recognition then scores the highest there, which is the counterfeit. And then we're also asking in terms of the competencies. So I'll just go to the competency slide there too. So these are the competencies, the how to get things done. Which entrepreneurial competencies are you and your team the strongest in? And there we say innovation, creativity. We're coming up with new ways of doing it, scoring the highest. In fact, I'm going to close the poll now, and then I'm going to share the results with you. Let's do that. Okay, so you'll see there for ambition scored the highest in terms of what we're strong at, and the need for recognition the lowest. But we're on competencies now, and there innovation and creativity seems to, we score ourselves and our teams the highest there on creativity and innovation. We're coming up with new ideas. And then maybe also readiness to take risks and proactivity and so on score high, as well as perseverance. Perseverance is a very important one, you know, to stick out even if it's difficult, and dealing with change also. And then which one are the ones that we are your team the weakest in, us and our teams, and their team building scores the high again. So it looks like in the room here today, Frans, we've got people that are struggling a bit with communication and getting the team to glue together. Self-confidence, they also score as something that they find challenging. Collaboration and self-confidence. So maybe that's something that we can pause on quickly. So I'm not sure if you would have, Frans, if you had comments before we go to Riaan to reflect on how these issues about motivation and competencies have been played out in their startup. Frans, any comments around those challenges?
Well, about the need for recognition profiling, I think most of these people are young graduates, but if they're also university professors, experienced people who get into independent activity, and for them it's often need for recognition profiling. They want to become notoriety in their field. But for a starter, I don't think it's so dominant need for profiling.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the reason why this is a very neglected point a little bit.
Yeah.
This is my explanation. I am not.
No, that's great. So Riaan, if I can come to you. So if you reflect from your journey over the past 3-4 years now, 3.5 years, first about motivation, sort of, so for you and your team, sort of, I'll go back to the motivators too in the slides. Remind ourselves: ambition, passion, independence, autonomy, and need for recognition. How did that play out for you guys?
Well, I would say for us, you mentioned initially hunger, that it could have been on the list, and I almost thought that you were going to mention literally hunger, as in you don't have food to eat, therefore you have to do something about it, which is not a bad motivator. Which is almost how this journey started for Dom and myself. But man, it's really because obviously we had a relationship before we started. We had a working relationship before that. We knew each other personally. And man, we were just passionate about this. We saw a massive opportunity, and we saw something that we could do better than anybody out there, or at least that's what we believed. And one of the things for us, I would say, it's probably it's between ambition and passion. Ambition because we feel we've been given many talents and we want to be faithful stewards with those talents. And in terms of passion, it just comes through in pretty much everything we do. We either in it 100% or we're not at all. And so the third word in that is personal growth. And I'm telling you, it has been the most rapid growth curve for us in every sphere. Because, as most startups know, you are the accountant, you're the HR manager, you are the marketing sales, you are everything all the time. And obviously, as you grow, and Frans mentioned that you want to start handing over those competencies, you put those people on board that are better than you, in those areas. And it sounds like a myth. It sounds like a nice idea, but in reality, as the team grows, as the responsibilities grows, you have to have people that you can delegate effectively to and keep them motivated. So motivators for us, that was pretty clear in terms of the competencies. Obviously, I'm very blessed to obviously have started this with Dominique. As I mentioned earlier, our strengths are very different. I am on the right-hand side of the scale. It's all about the vision and what can be. Lots of faith, big dreams. Let's make this happen. I want to activate everything I see. And Dom was like, whoa, hold on. We want to tackle that mountain, but do we have the climbing gear? Do we have enough food that's going to last for the journey? Did we take out insurance? So, being exceptionally strong on the project management and making sure the day-to-day operations, we don't run out of the fuel, so to speak, has been exceptionally helpful. And I would definitely say, co-founder, founder, man, know your weaknesses, and bring someone on board that can, that has that as their strengths, but also stand in your strengths. Know what you're strong in. With the competence, I saw one of the poll elements was confidence. Man, you have to back yourself. If you're not going to back yourself, you can't expect anybody else to back you. Even if you make a mistake, be quick to say, I'm sorry, but move on. It's about rapid decision-making with the knowledge you have at hand. Obviously seeking counsel where counsel is needed, especially when it comes to, maybe losing money or, big decisions that's shifting the business as a whole. But the one thing, for both Dom and I, from the first moment is none of those things like, proactive innovation or readiness to take risks. We both knew that we could count on one another 100%. I didn't have to look over his shoulder, him over my shoulder. The conversations we had was, but you have to take some time off. You've got to get some sleep. You can't do everything all the time. So it was that. And if that wasn't the case, again, I don't know how we would have gotten to where we are, today.
Yeah. So if you're the Steve Jobs, he's the Steve Wozniak.
Love it. Great analogy. Yes. That was really all about Wozniak. So
yeah. I see Dominic actually made a comment here on the Q&A. He asked that you talk a bit more about the daily stand-up. What is that?
Yes. Okay. So one of the results of the poll where the guys felt that they were the weakest in was communication. If I remember correctly, it was just the ability to communicate, and man, I'm telling you, it's like any good relationship. If there's no communication, the relationship, what does it build on? So something we realized early on is that we would rather check in on a daily basis with now it's head of departments. Initially, it was just the team. Everybody who's part of the team would be around the table, and we call it the stand-up because it's literally it's not a sit-down meeting. You stand around the table, you stand around in a circle in the room.
Excuse me a moment.
And you've got three things that you have to give feedback on, and that is, what did I manage to achieve yesterday? What am I hoping to achieve today? And what are my stumbling blocks? And someone like maybe myself or Dominique would lead this, and we check in with every single person. This is what you did yesterday. This is what you're hoping to do today. And that's a perfect opportunity. And these meetings are quick. They're 10, 15 minutes maximum. Everybody gets 60 to maybe 120 seconds to talk. We don't discuss big topics. We'll take that offline. And we just keep true to those three things. And what we found is everybody is aligned to what needs to be done. If anybody is off course or maybe is not seeing what is most of a priority for that day or that week, we could align right there and then. So actually, don't tackle that big thing. There's something that's actually a bit more urgent, a bit more important. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Let's do that. So I would definitely advise what has been gold for our stand-up for our startup has been that daily check-in. Now that could be in person. I know of a lot of international companies who does that online, like through a Skype perhaps. But having that daily conversation where you're at, what did you achieve yesterday, hoping to achieve today, and what were the stumbling blocks? So because sometimes someone is struggling with a person or a process or have some issues, and it's crazy. We've actually found people who are struggling with something for days. Whereas in the stand-up, if that was mentioned, it's like, actually, have you tried this? It's like, oh my goodness, no. So I would highly encourage, if you battle with communication, start with a daily stand-up. You could Google it. There's a lot of resources on it. But immediately the team feels very clarity in their direction.
Great, thanks, Riaan. So that's also very practical. And I was wondering if anyone else in the room has got similar tips in terms of how they can do to improve communication, then we can do that in the chat. And Obi Ageri, you've got a question here. I was wondering if you want to raise your hand, if you are prepared to come into the room to talk about that question that you have. But before we do so just raise your hand if you are happy for us to bring you into the room, either just your voice or your video too. Alex, I see your camera is off, so, but I know you're still here. I just wanted to bring you in too. And you need to unmute yourself. So I know you had to step out for a moment. Let's unmute you. There you are. Super. Now I'm unmuted you. Okay, there you are. So in terms of the discussion around motivation and competencies, sort of what stands out for you as something to note?
Okay, so something that stands out for me in terms of the motivators, I think is, first for me is ambition. So I think that if ambition and passion, so I feel like if the entrepreneur is not, doesn't have a burning desire to bring his or her idea into a business, then it might not ever come to light, because there's a lot of challenges that entrepreneurs face along the entrepreneurship journey. It's not easy. There's going to be failure. There's going to be ups and downs. But I think their ambition and their passion for what they're doing will actually help them to scale through in the long run. In terms of the competencies, I think I like to hear that a lot of the entrepreneurs found being an innovative risk taker is something that's very important. I think that a lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with in the foundation are doing something that's not the norm. They're challenging the status quo, and they're trying to disrupt, the way that things are been done in the past. And by doing so, they're offering solutions that are being able to impact hundreds of thousands of people. So I think that having a leader and also key members of your team that are innovative and able to bring in great ideas is very important. And the fact that they're able to take risks, because they have to be willing to, because being an entrepreneur is not going to be easy. There's going to be, like I said, challenges, and you need to be able to take risk and be willing to deal with the consequences, either good or bad. What was interesting to hear from the poll was that some of the entrepreneurs struggled with communication and lacking self-confidence. And I actually wanted to hear if anyone in the room wanted to come in and talk about their experiences with this, and if anybody, but I don't see anybody that is willing to come in yet. But I'm very curious to hear more about the self-confidence and how that has been lacking in building teams for some of
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's not necessarily the founders themselves, but it's the whole team and the confidence in it. Yeah. So if there's someone in the room that would like to speak to that, we've got Obi Gailey asking about investors as part of your team. And in fact, we've got him in the room. I'm not sure if we unmute. I'm not sure if Obi Gailey is a male or a female name.
Obi, yeah, she's one of our alumni.
Yeah, so prepared to make mistakes, but sorry for that, Obi Gailey. But if you want to speak about your question around the investor and the investor being part of the team, what is the question that you have? She is there. Obi Gailey, maybe.
Okay.
You can speak now. Obi Gailey?
Hi, Obi. Can you unmute yourself?
She is unmuted.
Oh, she's unmuted.
No, I think maybe she stepped away for this moment. In any case, so let's move on then to, but the question is, maybe we can just address the question. The question is dealing with investors as part of your team and bringing them into your team if they're only involved in one of the projects. How closely should they be involved? So maybe, Frans, we can first ask you, and then Riaan, if you can also reflect on that. Investors as part of team members, especially if they're only involved in one of the projects that your startup is involved with.
Well, I think it's part of the building a strong team is just attracting investors, because we always distinguish in a project between the horse and the jockey. the horse is the project. There is the financial plan, the business plan, the traction, and the horse, and the jockey is the founder and the co-founders. So if you don't have strong jockeys, I don't think you will find investors, because it's just this who communicate to the investors. So you have to explain your business. You have to prove that you have a strong team, that you have a vision, that you have some traction already. So the topic of our discussion today is just making a strong case for investors. And you have to build a team, but you have to document also the qualities of your team, because telling that you are top is not enough to investors. You must always document it, and you can document it by making profiles of your team members, or coaching or training programs for your team members. So a lot of things have to be registered in a structured way. Otherwise, you are just not convincing enough to investors. Yeah, I don't know if this is answering your question, Christophe.
It does address it in a way. I think the question is specifically around someone that's investing in a project, and then
and playing a role in the daily operations.
Yeah, so how close should they become part of your team?
Yeah,
I'm not sure, Riaan, if you perhaps have a comment around that.
Yes, so my initial thinking is not every investor is going to want to be operationally involved. They're betting on you because you've proven, or at least shown something that, you've got the ambition, you've got the passion, you've got the, you're putting the shoulder to the wheel. So I think you've got to establish from the word go what kind of investor is it. Do they want to be operationally involved? And if so, then what are the competencies that they bring to the table? And I would say then, if you both agree that that is what you both want, my goodness, you'd be silly not to leverage that person for their knowledge, for their contacts, just for their ability to bring in and add value to the team. However, if the investor is not interested in being operationally part, and they only invested in one of your projects, again, I think you would be doing yourself harm not to at least communicate to them the other projects that you are busy with, because if they've invested already in you, they trust you, they put their money where their mouths are. They're already risking on you, and sure, that's why at McDonald's, for instance, you're already in front of them. It's not a question of do you want food? It's like, do you want supersize it? And that's where they actually make most of the money. So what I'm saying is, if you have an investor on board already and they're only involved in one project, my goodness, you tell them everything that you're doing. Share your vision, share your dreams, so they can see, and potentially that's where you might get your next round of funding from. It's the existing investor. So I wouldn't know why you won't want them to know about the other projects you're busy with, unless it's completely different to what they've invested in. Then maybe it's wise to not show them then. But I would question that in any case. If you're heading north, but another project is going south, you as the entrepreneur must probably ask yourself some questions about why you're doing that.
But I don't want to read too much in the question, but it may also relate to investors wanting to play closer to the business, managing their risk, and the business feeling, maybe there should be a bit of a distance. So I'm not sure how you feel about that, sort of how close should the founders try to at least maintain a bit of distance with their investors?
I think so it's me or Frans?
Well, you're busy talking, so you can go.
Well, okay. But I have to add something. I think in Europe, there are a lot of people who have been working as in directors in high positions in big companies. They're 40, 45, and they want to stop it. So they have earned a lot of money, they have a lot of expertise, and these guys want to go in a company, in their expertise field. Like medical science or computer science. These are typical people who go in a company which has already some traction. They come as a partner, working partner, invest some money. This is often the case here in Europe. I don't know in Africa it is also this way. But I have seen a lot of times.
I I had a quick question. Is it a possibility that these entrepreneurs, another role that the investor could play is maybe on the board of the business? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, perhaps that's something that the investor would put part of their agreement. Frans, if the HWEP invests in a business, would they often want to be a board member too?
Well, a board member is something different as a really participating member. Eh?
Yeah.
The case I mentioned that from the middle-aged European guy who invests in the company has an active role. It's more than a board member. Eh?
Yeah.
He plays a role in production or in marketing or in the expertise field he has. You see.
So, Riaan, what is your sense? What is your practical sense there? You know, sort of the distinction between kind of management and governance from the board, and that investors should not be too closely involved in the operations. So, as long as they sit on the board and have that perspective, that's okay. But otherwise, don't try to draw them too close.
No, I don't think. Personally, I don't think. Yeah, I wouldn't agree with that. Purely because both Dom and myself are on multiple levels. First, we are investors in the company because we put everything into it. We're also the operations management team who's executing on the day-to-day operations. We're also directors of the company. We sit on the board. You know, so we on all the possible levels. We're there. However, we have board members that are not operationally involved. They don't want to be operationally involved because, as Frans mentioned, you know, they have multiple interests of other kinds, and getting their hands dirty in the business day to day is not what they want. And I think, therefore, you know, one will have to be very clear. If you, as the entrepreneur, want to run your company and just want financial backing, that's the kind of investor that you need. You know, someone who's on board level who can direct certain affairs, you know, bring money to it, and then not be in the operation involved. Or, you know, but again, the investor might say, look, I want to be, and then you have to have a crystal clear job, you know, description for them, their KPIs, and it's two separate things. You might be putting money in, but if you're going to be, let's say, our CFO or COO, well, this is the job description. This is how you're going to be measured. And if you don't do a good job, then you're also going to be, you know, performance managed or, yeah, should be just part of the normal management structure. So. Yeah. I hope that's helpful.
I think that's a really good and healthy perspective to have, I would say. But let's move on. So the time is ticking by. So we want to talk about retention of team, not only getting the right people in the team, but keeping them too. So Frans, if I can hand over to you, and you know, maybe you can complete what you want to present to us today, and then we can go back to discussing things a bit more looser. So yeah. Frans, I've got the slide there up about if everyone can be an entrepreneur.
Yes, it's an often asked question. Eh? Yeah, it's an often asked question. Entrepreneurship, is it in your blood? Some say you don't have it or you have it. Others say no, you can learn it. So I think both parties are right. As for the ambition, the motivators, it must be in your blood. But for the competencies and the leadership, then you can learn it. For a big part, eh? And you have the aspect of coaching, mentoring. So this can be learned, but the motivator itself, if it is not there, it will be difficult to become an entrepreneur. I think so. Both visions have a little bit of truth. Eh? So, and then about. Very important, as we say here, binding is the new finding. Eh? So if you have good people on board, please try to hold them. And then we come to the topic: why do people leave a company? And there's an international survey, and they found 3 reasons: lack of growth and development, lack of respect, and lack of adequate compensation. These are 3 things which are very important for people who to decide if they stay or if they leave. Eh? And then we see on the next slide, we will see what we can do about that, about these 3 things. Eh? So offer competitive compensation, ensure employee recognition, offer growth and development opportunities, and ensure a healthy work-private life balance. So the last three are free, doesn't cost anything. The first one is not free, and maybe in the bootstrapping period, we can think about an option scheme. And for the other ones, it's a question of communication for a big part. So I don't know.
Do you just want to expand a bit, Frans, on the option scheme option? Because it was something that was already raised, and Alex underlined that too. That as startups, often we know what the talent is we need. We actually know who the people are that we need to recruit into fulfilling that need, but we can't afford them. So how does the option scheme work?
Well, there are a lot of forms of options of promises. It's a promise. It's a promise for the future. There are a lot of possibilities. It all depends of the circumstances. I don't think there is a fixed solution for a startup. But there is that often it goes wrong, because the expectations are not clear and the communication is not clear. And then afterwards there are problems about this aspect.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a list of recommendations. I think they speak for themselves. I think first we have we must have individuals which are very strong on themselves. So I think you should look at each individual you hire. Is this a strong element? Is there a lot of potential and capacities which we need in the company here? And then the second aspect is the aspect of the diversity. Different visions, different backgrounds. More specifically, don't hire copies of yourself. So you need complementary profiles. Don't look on skills and certificate, but search for talent with drive. So the competency aspect, not so much the skills and the diplomas. So next, develop the talent you hire. Don't let them just sit, work on them. Potential, but also experience. For some jobs, you need an experienced guy, not just somebody with potential. So this is equilibrium. Then not all strong performers have the potential to succeed at a higher level. So if you have a very good colleague and he is very good in this job, maybe by giving him promotion, he will not succeed, and you create a problem on the post where he was. So attention with promotion. Promotion is not only the only way you can grow vertically. You can have a function which is rich in contacts with clients without having to grow up. And then, very important, work systematically, tools and methods, and document the process to investors also, that they see what you have on board. How did you get them? How did you form them? Annual or half-annual reviews. Document is very well, because it's the jockey. The jockey is very important for an investor to see what there is on board. And then the last point, an inspired performance team is very important for the employer brand. So to getting new people on board is very important. If you have a team which plays the role of ambassador for your company. You see, there are some suggestions here. Maybe this is less important at the moment, but if you go internationally, I found from Numbeo, it's a very, very well-known site, very international well-known. The cost of living reflected monthly net salary. And I put the index 100 for Belgium, let's say for Europe. And then you see that South Africa is a relatively expensive country compared to Ghana, Egypt, Rwanda, Morocco, Cote d'Ivoire. So if you go internationally, you can profit from this situation, that you go to a country where life and wages are less expensive. So you have it's very interesting to be able to go to countries where life is less expensive, where you can accelerate and have more power. It's just and then last but not least, for the to the investors, the quality of the founder and the key team is very important for a venture capital fund at the start. And the execution capability, if you're growing, is also important for in a later phase with banks, venture capital, or private equity. And the last point, telling is not enough. You have to document it, because telling that you are top is not enough. You have to prove it. So, International American has proven tools for evaluating team members, structured reports on progress in coaching and monitoring, must underpin your team quality claims and give trust towards investors. So your team is maybe your most important investment in your startup. Even if you have no money, no means, you can start forming a team with people you know, with the colleagues, with from the same incubator, the same region. So this is very important. You can work on your team even before you have traction, and you must document it. You must have a method to evaluate them and to motivate them and to form them. So this was a little bit the conclusion, or my conclusion.
Great stuff. Thanks, Frans. As I'm not sure if I oversold it in the beginning, but there's so much depth in what you presented here today. It's more to digest than just in an hour and a bit. But let's talk a bit about this team retention thing and how to make sure that we can not only attract the right people, but keep them too. So we can do another poll. Let's launch the poll quickly, and everyone in the room can participate. By the way, remember to put your questions. We're going to come to the end of the masterclass soon, and if you have any questions and it's not recorded on the Q&A, we may have missed that. So it's an opportunity for you to get some advice on your specific situation that you're in. But there's the poll, so you can participate by, there are only 2 questions this time. So which of the following ways can you use currently to retain team members? So in your current situation, you can choose as many as are applicable to you. And then the second question is, which of the following ways can you not use currently? So which are available? The first one, which are available to you currently to use in retaining the talent that you need? And the second question is, which ways are totally unavailable to you? So then we may see that they're excluding each other, but there may also be some overlap in terms of people's situations. And as you are voting, it becomes interesting to see that ensure employee recognition and offer growth and development are by far the ones that startups can offer their people, and that competitive compensation is the one that they're struggling with. So you can vote there, but that trend is perhaps expected in a way. Riaan, is that true for you guys too? I'm going to enter a poll now and just share the result quickly. That it's easier for you to attract and retain people through employee recognition, growth and development than it is to pay them big salaries? Or is that not? Are you not following that trajectory that other people in the room are heading?
It's such a crazy thing, because people, working for a company, obviously they would like to earn as much money as they possibly can. So, hey, we'd love to be in that position too. But because half the company is a sales force, it means what you're going to put in is what you're going to get out. So we do major not on how big a basic salary we can give you, but on the other element, the bonuses, the commission structures, the incentives. So there's a lot we do on that front. And that's actually, we literally last week, we got a whole bunch of videos in from staff just saying, hey, why would you say anybody should join ASG? And basically every single video submitted by the staff, and it was just on their phone, shooting, while they're running or driving. Well, hopefully only one guy driving in the car, but was the fact that the amount of compensation they get, other than the basic, the bonuses, the cash on the table weekly and monthly, and the fact that they feel supported and they have all the tools to make a success. Those were the three main keys that came out for why they love working for us and why anybody should consider it. And it's funny because no one said, oh, it's because we earn such a big basic. So I do think there's a way, a definite way around it. But if you can show that, and again, one of the things we do is straight from the interview process, from the ad to the interview process, these are the values that we communicated. That's what we value. Those are the kind of individuals we want.
Yeah. So to be innovative in the way that you can remunerate people too. So it's not a strain out of the, out of your pockets. It's when they actually do well that they earn well too.
Correct. And that's our heart. We say from the word go, we want to set you up for success. So we're going to give you the training, the tools, and the support to do incredibly well. It's now just up to you to follow, and do the activities. And so we've made that very simple. And also, the more you put in, the more you're going to get out. So we find that none of our top performers that are leaving because they could never earn what they earn with us anywhere else. But on the flip side, the guys, and you'll probably always have that. There's going to be the bottom 10, 20% who's maybe struggling for whatever reason. And for them, it's not great, which is intentional. We want you to perform well and do well because if you do well, we do well, and we all prosper in the process.
Yeah. You see, so I'm not sure if I've made the mistake that one often does when you know someone well and you know their business well, that you assume everyone else in the room do so too. But maybe you can just tell us about ASG and, sort of what you guys are doing, what the offering is, and your growth, maybe referring to the talent part, because your business is based, the sharp end of your business is based on people that have talent to do stuff.
Correct. So ultimately, we bring an international audience to Africa to experience 5-star safaris. Sometimes it's not 5-star, sometimes 4-star, but that's what we do. So we're a travel agency that ultimately, take care of all the issues and struggles that someone might have to come to Africa, which is flights and transfers, accommodation, having a 24/7 support person, someone who can actually do all of that and know that they not only their holiday but also their money is in safe hands, and there's someone that they can refer to. But for us to do that, we need top-notch consultants. At least, right now, half the company are consultants. Those are the people who would, once an inquiry comes in and the client says, hey, I want to travel, they would be on the phone literally consulting, understanding what it is that you want to do, experience, what is that your likes and your dislikes, and then literally solving all their problems and sending them a quote for their holiday. And of course, the other half is those who in marketing, driving the traffic and generating the leads. It's HR, internally with almost 80 people. It's critically important that we understand that everybody has got a roadmap ahead of themselves and their personal growth within the company. And of course, our product team, our web development team, the management structures. We've got finance and admin. So right now, there's obviously a lot of people that make this happen, and our ratio is almost 1-to-1. However, we know the magic number for us is around 2-to-1, 2 sales or consultants to 1 admin, and that's also what we're working towards. But that's a little bit of the cogs that make.
Yeah, so the interesting question around motivation of people and keeping them productive would be how you can differentiate and have different approaches to those. If you talk about the 2 main areas of competency, sort of the support staff, the admin, HR, and those, as opposed to the people that are at the front of the setting. Are those different? Do you use different tools to keep them productive?
Yeah, so we've distilled first, it's for every head of the department to understand what is their one core KPI. It might be to onboard 4 new consultants. That might be HR. And then for sales, what is the number one thing we look at? So once you know what the number one thing is, then the next level down is what are the 3 to 4 maximum key performance metrics that we're going to use to measure that. Might be the average number of sales, the actual sales amount, your conversion rate, the average booking value, and then the amount of sales you make. So we try to simplify it because I believe clarity is kindness. So we clarify the role of each person. What does success look like, and what does struggling or failure looks like. And we do everything to help people stay above that line, again, weekly, monthly. Know what you have to do, know how to do it, and let's do it.
Now, let's ask Frans if there are. So, by the way, please don't run away. There are one or two learnings here, I think, that we can distill still from what we've discussed in the hour plus up to now. And I see everyone has remained in the room. So I think we're doing a good job in actually communicating that value too. So Frans, if I can refer to you, and Alex, I'm going to ask you to maybe reflect on this conversation part that we've had now, sort of the tools that are available for us to stay productive and keep our teams productive. So ourselves as founders and our teams. So Riaan has spoken a bit about that. Frans, are there others in the talent industry that are recommended that one should be considering, tools to use to stay productive?
Well, I think it starts with the hiring of the people. So if you have to have a good profile and a good diagnosis at the start, because you can't train anything. You must have the right person at the right place from the start. Otherwise, it takes too long. It is too risky. So a good selection is the first time for de-risking the success, the failure. So you have to have a good selection at the first time. And I think along the trajectory in a company, you have to have a psychological profile of a person. A competency profile, a psychological profile is very important, I think. And you go further on it in the training phase and the monitoring phase. So there must be a consistency in it, I think, from the start, that you have the right choice. And it's very clear after a short time. It's clear if it will be a trajectory of years, or if it is somebody who will be successful and productive in a few weeks or months. I think it's more. And then another consideration is: do I hire potential or do I hire experience? For some people, in accountancy, you can't get a potential. You must have some experience who can add some value, some knowledge to the company's knowledge. So potential is not always enough. So it's experience, it's potential, and if you evaluate is good at the start, and you have some systematic methods to register this, then you can continue on that, and you can follow the trajectory of the person through the company, with some strong points, weaknesses, potential for promotion or changing of a position. So it's all talent planning. In fact, it's talent planning. So yeah, talent management is very important. It's talent management, but you must know everything about the talents the people have and the talents you need. So it's complete way of looking at the HR side of a startup, which is very, very important. But there are a lot of tools for this, for selecting, for evaluating, for training, for coaching. Everywhere are tools on the market.
Yeah, so I've launched a poll there. If attendees may have seen that, some are voting already in terms of tools that you're using. So as Frans said, it starts off with a hire as opposed to trying to control people afterwards. But are you using psychological profiles? Are you using SWOT profiles, documentation of team member traits, performance appraisals, recording of desired career paths, training plans for individuals, coaching plans for individuals, or any other? If there's other ways that you're doing, you can type it into the text chat. We'll note that. And then, of course, as we said, sort of noting around the competencies people have around managing their time. And as Riaan has alerted us, making use of key performance areas to heighten the attention on what those areas are that we want them to be performing on. But yeah, we score quite a spread here of the different tools available. So let's end the poll. It's kind of training plans for individuals is scoring the highest. by people that participated. I'll quickly share the results so you can see it too. But yeah, so let's, sorry, Alex, I'm going to put you on the spot now. So what if you reflect, Alex, on the businesses in the Tony Ilemele Foundation alumni, and the way that they deal with talent and getting the right people in the right places and supporting them and so on, what would you say is the way that they find the most effective in creating the capacity for them to then implement? So I see there's some questions still outstanding that we need to address, sort of. So Femi, for instance, or maybe you can speak a bit about that. She says, as a small startup with a low cash flow, they need some technical people, and it's difficult for them to get those people on board. But if they have them on board, or if they can entice them into coming on board, from your interactions with the entrepreneurs in your network, sort of how do they deal with those kind of challenges?
Okay. So I would say from the training that they receive from the foundation, and when we're teaching them about how to build their teams, part of the learning is for them to, when they're searching for team members, is to document each team member's traits and to look at what are their different competencies and how they can help to build your team, and what value can they add to your team. So that's the documentation of team member traits is something that we teach our entrepreneurs to look out for when they're looking for their team. But from the conversations that we've had about building your team, I found it very interesting that in addition to the many hats that a founder needs to wear in terms of being successful and building and starting their business, being ambitious, passionate, innovative, it looks as though the founder has to have some HR experience. So I think that's very interesting, and I think I wanted to ask maybe Riaan or Han about how, what other tools are available. Are there some types of HR firms that they can consult, that they can use to help them if they don't feel comfortable, if entrepreneur doesn't feel comfortable, sourcing for the talent on their own, is a question I had.
Yeah, so I think we can ask Frans to answer that question just now. So let's just agree quickly how we're going to do this. We're going to end soon. We've got 3 minutes left for our masterclass. So I'm going to ask Paige quickly to come in and just share with us, sort of from the HREP side, if people want to connect with the HREP, including with a fund if necessary, what they can do and how they can go about. And maybe the same for you, Alex, sort of if people want to connect with you before we wrap up. And then I'll ask Frans and Riaan just to give their final impressions or their final comments about what the takeaways are from the masterclass today. And Frans, if you can maybe just also reflect on what is out there in terms of service provision in talent, and what the marketplace looks like for startups to access services from talent companies, maybe like yourselves, sort of not only placement, but other support that founders and startups can look for when they need that kind of support. Okay, so there's kind of a quick running order of things for us to end our webinar or our masterclass on. So firstly, Paige, if I can come to you, sort of how can people connect with HREP, or why should they connect with HREP?
So we've got two sides to the HREP, which is the fund side, which is a venture capital fund, and then the foundation side, which runs projects to support entrepreneurs as well as supporters of entrepreneurs, so supporting all of the hubs in Africa. So this is an initiative of the foundation, and I'm just going to paste my email address into the chat. So if you have any questions about anything, or also if you have any topics that you'd like to be discussed in our next masterclasses, that would also be great to hear kind of what everyone's struggling with and what you want to find out more information about. And then I'll also put our website there, which will tell you a little bit more information about us.
Great, that's sweet and sound. Thank you. Sweet and short and sound too. So Alex, in terms of connecting with the Tony L. Miller Foundation, if there's someone on the masterclass today that would like to connect with you, how should they do that?
Right. So I just shared my email address in the chat there. So at the foundation, we have an entrepreneurship program that is currently ongoing, where we select startups from across Africa, and we train them, we provide them with mentorship, and we fund them with $5,000 seed capital. We accept entrepreneurs who have just an idea all the way up into 3 years with them operating their businesses. Once they get into our network, I help to manage the alumni network at the foundation. We try to continue to connect our entrepreneurs with additional value-add opportunities, such as masterclasses, trainings, and access to additional funding. So if you're interested in learning about how you can join our network and how you can join our program, you can send me an email.
Great. And you just missed the extension, the last bit of your email address. So maybe if you can retype the full one, that will help. Otherwise, it won't arrive with you. Okay, so let's start ending off. So Frans, if I can first come to you, if you can just maybe give us a quick overview of the services available in the talent industry for startups to explore, and then your final comments about the topic of today.
Well, we are an executive search and selection company in Belgium, France, Holland, and a small presence in Pretoria. But I think for startups, it is advisable to look for free tools. There are a lot of free tools which are not bad. So I think you have to be reasonable for HR. You can't spend as a startup lots of money, which bigger companies can. So there are lots of free tools on motivation, for looking for motivation of people you hire. So it's too much to enumerate them all, but if you have some questions, you can ask me. I have some idea about some tools that are on the market, free. And I think you must start with that, just to exercise into it, for competencies, for motivation, for everything. There is a lot of free tools which are rather good.
Okay. So if someone's got a question, they can use that page's email address, send that question around tools.
Yeah. If you have a question, I don't know everything about these tools, but I know a lot of them, and you can start with that. It's very important that you focus on the HR side of your business, that you see what you get on board and what the qualifications are, and that you document it a little bit.
Yeah. And then I see Riaan has typed in there upwork.com as a way. What is that about, Riaan?
So it's just the answer to Femi's question. Also, founder looking for technical people to join the team. I would highly recommend, especially if you don't have the resources to bring someone on board full time, go to upwork.com, which is a massive talent pool of people, of professionals that you could hire by the hour or by the project. And it's a very low-cost way of getting senior people to commit an hour or 2 or 3, even if you just need perspective on the project, for defining it properly. It's one of our go-to sources for getting the best talent in terms of design, web dev, a whole scope, copywriting, whatever it might be, so that we don't have to bring that person on board full-time necessarily. I hope that can help someone.
Yeah. Great. So I'm going to come to you just for a last point now, Riaan, too. But Frans, if you want to kind of summarize your main idea around why this was an important topic for founders to note.
Well, yeah. I think it's a HR business, starting up something. And this is the message I want to give, because even in the circles of investors, they are busy with business plans, financial plans, forecasts, but we try to explain them that they should look at the key team members and the founders, and this is coming into this evolution is going on. It will still accelerate. That venture capitalists and private equity will more and more look at the teams. So it's just starting now, because in the past it was a question of counting the chairs and the money and the tables and this question is HR question. And it's getting into the minds of the people here, of investors also. So it's time, if you are in a startup, that you realize that you will be judged on your team for a big part. This is my message.
No, sure.
I'm from the HR side, so it's.
Well, we're going to have this conversation is still going to go on. We're not going to end today with what we're talking about, I'm sure. And Riaan, a last thought from you before we sign off.
Yeah, I think just, in terms of building, strong teams, I think for me and, for both for Dom, the success of our team is how well we, as the senior leaders of the team, can serve the rest of the team. And then how well our, every person in the company can serve the customer. So we fully understand and commit to the fact that we are in the service business. And our success lies in making the people around us successful. So yeah, for every founder out there, just, the more you can point to someone, the more you can serve the people around you, be it delegating and motivating and inspiring and clarifying things for them and helping them along, the better they'll be able to ultimately serve your customer. And yeah, so let service be front of mind, both from you and from every person in your company to the customer.
Great. So I must say, my last task is to thank everyone, including the 20, I think we were 23 people in the masterclass. We aim to be about 20 people in the room so that it can stay engaging. I'll put the challenge to people joining next time to be a bit brave and, join us in the discussion if you have a point to make. There were a few of us that shouldered away from wanting to talk, rather just stick to the typing of the text. But we can make this more engaging by bringing the attendees into the room too. So next time we'll have someone doing that. Riaan, for sharing your practical experience, and it's great to see a company growing, from 2 to 80 in 3 years' time, and holding our breaths to see where it's going to go in the future. And of course, Frans, working closely with you with the HQ Fund and what we are aiming to achieve in promoting the entrepreneurial spirit, and as the same, of course, with Alexandria and the people at the Tony Lemele Foundation. So thanks guys for all collaborating in making this, I think, a great learning event. We'll have the recording, by the way. There's questions about how to access the slides and so on. So we share the recording link with you so you can have a view of it later on. And of course, we'll have one coming up soon too. So keep an eye on your inbox. There will be an invitation. So have a great Wednesday and good September. For us in the Southern Hemisphere, it's now spring. Not for everyone, some go into autumn, but we go into spring. So there's also some new growth to look forward to in our businesses, I suppose, like we do in spring. So go out and build your businesses. And as we said when we started off, one of our motivators is perhaps to be innovative and create something new. But it's also about creating a way for us to express ourselves and create a life for ourselves, the wealth for ourselves. So in combining that, I think we can make a big difference together. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye-bye.